So The Last of Us has come to an end for now. Season 1 has finished with episode 9. Mm-hmm. Look for the light. Throughout the season, I have remarked on what episodes are the most like the show, or the game, and what episodes are not, the most different. Obviously, episode 3 is the biggest departure of the season.
Yes. From
the source material. And there's definitely been a few episodes that have been pretty much identical throughout, with almost no changes.
Yeah.
Only additions, and that is it.
Right.
The last 2 episodes in a row now have been near shot for shot.
Yeah.
Like, there's very little different. There's just things missing. Right? And then there's additions.
Small additions.
But what they do adapt, they adapt almost word for word.
Yeah.
Which, as a fan of the game, right, a massive fan of the games, I can't really complain. That being said, of course, once again, as expected with the runtime, the infected... the action is pretty much all cut out. And I can 100% understand why that would annoy someone and why they would find this to, be lacking in that way. I still can't understand why someone wouldn't think this is a great adaptation. I just understand the criticism that I wish it had more action, but I feel like I would just be greedy at that point with how good this is.
Sure.
This is the best adaptation I've ever seen, especially the video game. That's not even close.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
So it does seem ungrateful to complain. So I'm not complaining. I'm A, outright just pointing it out.
Yeah.
And B, it's like, in a perfect world. But I was telling Kaylee that they could release an extended version on 4K. I don't think they will. But if they did, you could put in certain action sequences. And for instance, in episode 5, they have the scene where, they go down into the tunnels with Henry and Sam. They could have an infected scene down there.
Yeah.
And then they come out, right? Because in that, they just cut to them being out on the street.
Right.
But you could put a 5-minute action sequence of them fighting a few infected off. No problem.
Sure.
And the scene would still flow with it. Mm-hmm. Right? Now, yeah, they're casually walking. So maybe you'd have a scene of them, finding the outside.
Right.
Fighting it out a little bit, you almost got us killed, and then them moving on, and then they're at that scene. So you could add action sequences. It's not necessary, and I'm pretty much positive it won't happen.
Yeah.
But you could add it, and you could add it in this episode as well.
Sure,
but
you could. Yeah, I think that, I've said it in the past reviews that we've done. I understand why people, the action is missing. The infected are missing, compared to how much they are in the game. But I think that taking the action out specifically just expedites the story.
Yeah.
And I think that that's what is important with the series is the narrative itself. Versus the video game, you need the action to drive the player. If there is no action, it's just not the same type of experience. But I don't know, I can't complain about anything because I think that the show is just, it's really perfect to me. I think everything was done super artfully, and it's definitely a labor of love, and it shows, the passion for the story and for the game.
Yes.
With everybody that's working on the series, and I'm so excited for the next season.
Yeah.
And I just feel really thankful, and it's so cool that I can't believe it's over, because this was something that we were looking forward to for so long, and it was kind of shocking when we found out that it was even happening. It was oh my god.
And now we were getting it so early in January.
Yeah.
We thought we were going to get it till later this year.
Right. And just kind of so all of that felt so wonderful. And then now that it's over, it's kind of surreal in a way, but I don't think we could have gotten a better adaptation. I think it really is a perfect adaptation as far as everything goes. At least for me. I'm sure there's people, who have difference of opinions, but I think, like, I don't know, it's like so much is shot for shot.
Yeah.
And all the additions, as I've said in like all the past reviews that we've done, and as you've said, like, they're intentional and they add depth to the story and meanings that as a game, like as a fan of the game, you would want to know that information, which we get a big one at the beginning of this episode.
Yeah.
With Ellie's mom, which is really cool.
Yeah.
So,
Anna.
Yeah, Anna. Mm-hmm.
And at the end of the day, the action doesn't do anything to drive the story forward, right? The only thing that it does to serve the story at all is it adds stakes and thrilling aspects to the show so that you worry about the characters. But we get our action sequences, right? In episode 2, Infected, we get the action sequence not only inside the museum, but we also get all of the infected rushing Tess as she blows up the building. Then in episode 5, Kin, we get the huge battle sequence with the infected and the bloater that come up out of the ground, right? So we do get these things, and we get sporadic little infected here, whether it's in episode 7, Left Behind, with the the stalker that comes after Riley and Ellie. So right. we get it here. It's just sporadic. Mm-hmm. and not a lot, and I think Craig Mazin is a storyteller, right? And he just wants to tell the story, and the action part of it to him is probably the boring part to him. Sure. Where he's kind of just like, okay, like, that's cool, but like, let's focus on the story here. And so we just, as you said, we just expedite it. The only thing, like, so yeah, sure, I'll take some more action sequences because I love action and I'd like to see more infected and I'd like the show to be a little more violent on screen. But I also understand the audience that they're catering to, being on HBO, and it's like, you got to do that balance, and I think they balance it really well here. So I'm fine with it. The only missing piece of this entire show that I'm shocked that it was not included, and we once again get it reminded to us here, is back in episode 6 of the show, which, I'm sorry, that's Kin, right? 6 is Kin. 5 before that is I
don't remember the episode name.
Yeah, because Kin is that's right, because 6 is Kin. It's the one with Tommy is Kin. Right. Anyways, doesn't matter. It does matter, but I always do that. I always say it doesn't matter, and then I'm like, wait, it does matter, but but in that episode, Joel is supposed to reject the picture of Sarah with him at the soccer game, and he's just like, no, I'm good. And then Ellie snatches it from him and gives it to Joel at this point in the story, as episode 9 had was going on. And that's the big thing. Yeah. That we missed here. Sure, but like, if that's my complaint at the end of the day, I mean, like, one little thing is missing. It's not a little, but it's a big moment. Don't get me wrong.
It is a big moment.
I'm honestly shocked it's not in here.
Which, I mean, I am too, because I feel like it is such a, with how faithful, the adaptation has been with everything, it makes me feel that there is another place in season 2 in the continuing story that they want to put that moment or incorporate the photo or something, and maybe not. I mean, maybe,
I don't see how not, though, because
it just changes things. It'll be totally different.
The whole point of the picture is to show the growth, right? And they do that. So is it absolutely necessary to see Joel's transition from not accepting Ellie as his daughter because he doesn't want to get hurt again, to fully embracing it and being able to finally deal with Sarah. We do that, right? He talks about Sarah here at this military outpost. He's opening up about it, and we get this inclusion of his suicide attempt, which we'll talk about. But like, we get it. I think it's possible that Craig found it to be redundant because of that scene. It's like he rejects the memory of Sarah by Ellie being like, I'm not your daughter, and he's like, stop, like, you're treading on mighty thin ice. And then we get to the military complex, and he's like completely opening up about it. He's like, I want to teach you guitar. He wants to, like, he's embracing her fully as a daughter. So the same message is gotten across, right? We gotten all the same information. It's just, as you said, everything else is so spot on, and these all the big moments are here. That's literally the only single big moment that they did not cover in the entirety of this adaptation.
Right.
So it is odd that it's missing.
Yeah.
And I don't see how you can incorporate it later and have the same impact because of that very reason. It's already happened. Joel has to reject the picture because he doesn't want to think about Sarah. He doesn't want to go down that. He's not ready. He's not open to it. Mm-hmm. And then when he gets it later, he's obviously changed, right? But we do get that same emotion and the same
change happens.
Sure. Yeah. So is it necessary? I guess not, right? But it's just a weird missing piece. That's it.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. Mm-hmm.
So, anyways, let's move on. So, starting at the beginning, we get Ashley Johnson, the voice of Ellie herself, giving birth to Ellie once again for the second time. This time, literally giving birth to the character Ellie. I had guessed maybe a few hours before, but I thought about it, I think last night when I was watching the trailer for this. I was like, you know what I think's going to happen? I told Kaylee this morning. I was like, you know what I think's going to happen? I think we're going to see Anna get bit right as she's giving birth to Ellie. And that's going to, like, cue us in on how she became immune. Mm-hmm. And I was dead on with that. I expected it to happen just because I saw her getting chased in the trailer. And it was coming at her. And I was just like, when she's pregnant, it's going to be so hard to fight that thing off without getting bit. So that was my initial thought when I saw it. I was like, man, how should she fight that thing off without getting bit? And I was like, well, what if she does get bit? And that's why she's not around anymore, right? Obviously, she dies, and Ellie never even knows her, and she gives her to
Marlene.
To Marlene. I was going to call her Merle, because that's her real name. But she gives her to her. So, and then she gets thrown into, because we know it happens when she's like a baby.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, there's no way, she has to be dead.
Right. You called it perfectly.
Yeah.
And logically that makes sense. And I'm really happy that we got this opening because, like, we were watching the making of, little bits after, right? And Craig said that, as a game player, like, you would want to know, like, that's something you'd want an answer to is, like, why Ellie is immune. And so getting that information, and it makes total sense. It's completely reasonable that she would be immune if, her mother was bit and the umbilical cord was still attached. Like, it's cool. It's really cool to have that in there because, like, now we know why.
Sure, and I mean, and she lies to Marlene. Now, whether or not Marlene
believes her
or not. I know.
I thought that too. I think she does. I kind of feel like she does. I think she maybe questions for a second and then is like, because the alternative is you have to kill the baby, right?
More to the point of what I was trying to get at is that does Marlene think once Ellie is immune, back to that moment and thinking,
oh, I see what you're saying.
I bet she got bit.
Yeah, I'm sure
this is probably how it happened. And with that information, you could probably start making babies immune.
Yes,
it would be
to sacrifice the mothers, of course, but
not if you could replicate the process by like putting it into an umbilical cord. Because like, how does it pass through that fast to her? It would be very tricky, but it would be something worth like looking into. Although in these times, when the ethics of medicine are probably not, practiced anymore.
Not to mention
or
just
respected.
like the infrastructure itself too. I mean, the amount of people that are like actually trained
In that kind of science,
like
very little.
very few.
There's very
So
few
it
on
would
the
be
planet
tough.
currently.
Right.
So the
Let alone
numbers,
in the apocalypse.
Yeah, you have to think that if 99% of the population died, then 99% of those guys died, right? Just statistically speaking.
Right.
And there's probably not but a few thousand of them on the planet, so that doesn't leave many.
Yeah.
And it's been 20 years.
But you're right.
And a lot of those guys can be older. So
Yes.
whether, even if they did survive, they might not even be alive at this point. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Okay,
But it would
moving
be
on
worth
from that.
exploring.
So we have two great things happening in this opening, right? We get Ashley Johnson, and she's literally giving birth to Ellie, as she, did metaphorically by voicing the character. So we get that introduction, and we do get this explanation of how Ellie is immune. This is new to us as big game fans, and we know a decent amount about Anna from the games, from the cassettes or not cassettes, but the recordings that Marlene leaves behind that Joel listens to. I don't know why he has time to listen to tapes in the hospital while he's rushing to Ellie, but it's video game logic.
Yes, the player has the time.
We have the time. We're still killing people while we're listening to it.
Yeah, exactly.
Because it'd be really easy to hear that over gunshots. But yeah, so we get all of that, which is awesome. And I love Ashley's cameo. I love that she gives birth to Ellie. I love that we get the explanation. But what this is really setting up here, because the whole Ashley Johnson thing, that's for us. That's for the gamers. My dad and people like that, they don't give a shit. They're like, she's just an actress. Right? What's really happening here is that we're setting up the contrast of the mother and the father, surrogate mother and father of Ellie, right? Marlene is gifted Ellie as a baby, and she takes it and, she takes the baby and gives it away, right? And then once she's useful to her, then she once again pawns it off onto somebody.
Yeah.
Right? All the responsibility that Marlene has towards Ellie, she pawns off on everyone else. Here, Fedra, you take her. Here, Joel, you take her. She's trying to give her off to anybody, right? She just doesn't want that responsibility. And here's Joel, who really doesn't want her, but takes her.
Yeah.
Right? And loves her. And Marlene just lives with nothing but guilt, right? I'm sure she feels some guilt over Anna's death.
Sure.
She feels guilt over leaving Ellie at Fedra camp, to do what she's doing, and then sending her off with some random guy she, knows to be not a great character.
Yeah.
It's just, I like this setup of Marlene, and because we need to be reminded of her connection to Ellie and how this decision, when they do go to kill Ellie, without letting Ellie know, without letting Joel know, he doesn't know until it's too late. It's not too late, but it's too late technically. He has to do something insane for it not to be too late, but it should be too late, right? He's going to get killed if he tries to take the gun. He's only got a very short amount of time to get there. It's basically impossible. He pulls it off, but she doesn't give him a choice. She doesn't give Ellie a choice. They put her down before she even knows what's happening.
Yeah.
And so we have these we have this contrast.
Yes.
Between Merle. I keep wanting to call her Merle. Why? Because it's a real name. Between Marlene and Joel and their connection to Ellie. And Marlene is willing to get rid of her. And Joel isn't.
I think that's representative of the two types of people in that situation, right? It's
Sure.
on one hand, Joel is very, I guess, like I want to almost call them small-minded, but that's kind of what I mean, but not really. Marlene's looking at the bigger picture. Like,
Yep.
she's willing to sacrifice one to save the many, and Joel does not want to sacrifice the one to save the many.
This is very
And
reflective
so,
of their characters in general.
It is.
Yes.
And that is, with how the show and the game end, with Joel's decision with everything, like, that's the big controversy, is what would you do in that situation? And it seems like it's pretty split. Like, it seems like there are people on either side, and
Sure, some
that's
people
what's
are Marlene,
scary, right?
yeah.
Like, if the world was ever in a situation where you needed somebody to be selfless, knock at the cabin,
Yeah.
right? Like, and they're not selfless, and instead they're selfish. Like, people are screwed for it. But you also can't blame them for being like that because, we're only human, and the people that we love are really important to us. But yeah, I do like having the contrast of their characters, and I think that, she does a great job at being Marlene, and so
Obviously.
I love her performance in
Yeah.
this, but yeah.
Yeah. The person who plays Marlene, playing Marlene.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But,
I get it.
playing her in live action, it's cool.
It's different, I guess.
It's a little different.
Yeah. Now, yeah, I mean, you said mostly everything there. I do. You can, and that's just it, right? That's the whole point of The Last of Us, right? Is, okay, there's a lot more, but I'm just saying, like, at the core of it and at the end, the whole point of the end of The Last of Us is, maybe you disagree with Joel, right? I'm sure, as she said, I don't know what percent. We'll say it's 50-50. Like, the point is, you don't have to agree with him. You just have to understand why he did it. Right? That's the whole point of the ending, is like, you're taking this journey with them for context. Right? Like, if you just watched episode 9 only, you would be like, I don't understand why this guy's doing this. He's a piece of shit. He's a villain. He's horrible. What's wrong with him? Right? But when you go on that 8 other episode journey with it, and you see everything he's went through, and you really spend that time with them, this is where things aren't black and white. Mm-hmm. Right? This is why gray areas exist. This is great storytelling. This is, as much as I love Star Wars and that kind of stuff, when you watch the original trilogy, for the most part, outside of like the Darth Vader inclusion and all that stuff later on, but like in the very first Star Wars, it's black and white, right? And that's kind of the typical old school Hollywood type shit.
Yes.
And this is much more intriguing because this asks those really impossible questions of like, would you let your kid die to save, X amount of people?
Yeah.
And it's like, to add on top of that, one of your daughters already died.
Of course,
right?
Yeah.
And this person has brought you back from the dead.
Yeah. And
now they're killing her. Now, at what point would Joel make this decision? Right? I guess that's the question. If he dropped her off with Tess, right, where they were supposed to, he would have definitely let her go.
Oh,
At that point, I'm sure he's like, he's looking at his watch when they're out there on the thing and everything. Like, he's reminded of Sarah, but he's not in. He's not in yet. When they get to the University of Colorado, at that point, if we had Marlene was there and they were like, the whole thing played exactly the same, would he kill everyone and get her at that point? I don't know. I'm in the middle on that one. Maybe. Right? Because like in this, we know he has no regrets. Right? He hates that he had to do it. Mm-hmm. He's not a fan of what he had to do. He beats himself up for it. I'm not going to talk much about the second game yet. We can save that for the end. But like, we know Joel is decisive here. And he would do it again in a heartbeat. Because, yes, Marlene is all about, leading the Fireflies and taking on taking on Fedra and doing what's right for the betterment of mankind, or how she sees it as. And she puts him on this big mission, and they're going to go save the world, and that's all Marlene's idea. Joel's just a courier. He's just muscle for hire. He's very, very selfish. He does not care about anyone or anything, and it's through this that he learns how to care. But it's only about one thing, and that's Ellie.
I think it's hard to pinpoint like what moment is the turning for him, because like you said, it's a journey. So there's so many like points throughout their path together where he is warming up to her, or healing really. So it's hard to say like there's a definitive point when that happens, because it's all leading up to where it ends up.
There's definitely a point that I can pinpoint to where he's 100% all in at that point, and it's like he's completely healed himself through all of this, and that's when he finds her after she's killed David.
I mean, at that point, yes.
That's like 100%. He is completely in that is his daughter now. When he holds her, he calls her baby girl, all that stuff. He is like cured from
I mean,
that.
I guess that would be the point that I would say too, but I feel like you don't get to that point unless you have the others, right?
Sure.
Like that's kind of why I'm saying it's hard to like pinpoint the exact moment. It's just that's when things really click into place.
Yeah. I mean, as I said, where he would have done this in the story versus where he wouldn't have is impossible to say. We can all just speculate. So I don't know what that place is, but it's a fun thing to discuss, and I think we'll leave it there for that. So okay, we then, after the Ashley scene happens, Anna's scene happens, we move into Ellie, who is once again not hearing Joel as he's speaking. She's completely lost at this point. And of course, the tragedy of this is that once Joel is ready, once he's like fully in,
yes,
and he's in a good mood, and he's smiling, and he's talking about teaching her guitar, and he's telling her like funny little anecdotes and all sorts of little things, right? He's all in, and this is when she's broken. Yeah. Right? And there could be something to that as well, right? Because she becomes so broken, he can relate to her, and that's what really connects him to her.
Yeah, I actually do think that is part of it, because Joel's character, like his relationship with Tommy wanting to save him, I think that he does have that as like a personality trait that's like, this is who I am. Like, I'm the guy that comes in and protects and saves, and so he needed her to be vulnerable in a way for him to feel like he was also going to be vulnerable in his own way by caring about her and admitting that he cares about her. And it sucks, because it is like, why can't they just be happy together?
They're trauma bonding.
Yeah.
I mean, this is the ultimate trauma bond story.
Yes.
And it's just, unfortunately, they go in opposite directions in their healing.
Yes.
Right at the same time. She's broken and he's fixed. Right? It's sad because the whole game, or the whole show, she's the light and cheery one. She's always trying to crack the jokes. Yeah. She's always trying to have a good time. And then as soon as she's broken, then all of a sudden Joel comes in and he's trying to kind of carry that, positive load. Yeah. And it's sad. It's sad because if you know the game and the games, you know that this is unfortunately how it goes. Yeah. And it's like the happy Joel and the sad Ellie and the vice versa is most of what we get. Yes. So it is a damn shame, and that's why a scene coming up in the next season is my favorite scene in the entire franchise, because we get the crossover of both. And then we don't not get it here. We get a little bit of it, right? When he like tells her to pull out the pun book. Yeah. And he's kind of laughing. They have a moment. Wonderful moment.
It's super sweet. And of course, it's like immediately interrupted.
Yeah. I also like the attention to detail here that in the opening, I forgot to mention, Ellie is wrapped in a green coat and given a switchblade to Marlene. And Marlene, when she has Ellie in captivity, when she's holding her hostage, when she comes in, she gives her the switchblade and the green coat that she was wrapped in. This is a very Superman-esque thing, you know. I liked that, though. And I noticed the green jacket. I was like, wait a minute. It was probably covered in, you know, freaking baby goop.
Yeah.
Hopefully she washed it, but in this world, I don't think you wash things.
I don't know.
But it's cool to see. It's cool to see her green jacket is what's wrapped around her, and then of course the passing of the switchblade, which is added as far as Marlene giving it to Joel, and Joel being like, I don't remember him getting it in the game. Joel being like, this is his reminder. Like when he has it, it's like this is all that's left of Ellie. And it's like his watch, right? It's the memento.
Right.
Right? And he's like, I'm not going to let this thing become this thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
And it's just like he looks at this thing and he looks at this thing and it's like, no, never again. Right? And he's in that position once again. And it's just pure trauma, right? Like Joel's reaction, like I could probably argue his reaction in court and potentially get him off for just a total psychotic break. Like, if I took them through this journey and I showed them this, and then I was like, this is what he did, there'd be a lot of people who'd be like, well, yeah, I mean, he just...
Of course he reacted that way.
He straight up had a freaking break. Like, they...
Yes.
What do they call that in court?
I don't know.
Yeah, the passion. Moment of... the
crime of passion?
Yeah, something like that.
Well, I don't think you get off on crimes of passion, but he could maybe like
like if like you walk in, like there's a way to argue that in court where it was like a moment of temporary insanity is what I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
Temporary insanity. There
Yeah.
you go. A crime of passion due to temporary insanity. Yeah. Anyway. So yeah, we get this scene where, and this is an added scene where we get Joel saying, now I already mentioned he was going to teach her the guitar and he's like trying to chum her up and he stops in the little trailer that we see in the game, which was cool. The attention to detail here throughout is phenomenal.
Oh my gosh.
We talk about it in every episode. So, I mean, once again, it's flawless. Like everything is so meticulously recreated, like all of the settings, locations, when they see the giraffe and where they run up to and where they run over to and all that stuff. So much of it is identical.
Oh my God,
their outfits, their everything. It's incredible.
Yeah, they just took it out of the game and put it in real life.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess I could see people not liking the shot-for-shot stuff. They're like, oh, I've already played the game. Like, I wanted to see a different version of this. Okay. I guess I could understand that. I love the game so much that it's like, I don't really want it that different. I'm cool with the additions.
Yeah.
But the just straight up like, nah, we're just going to change this. We're going to change this. I would hate that.
I know. We talked about it, when we were speculating, like, what would happen with the show. Like, if things were going to be wildly different and if we would like that or what. But I definitely think that with what we got, I would have been really upset if there had been like wild differences. But like what you were just going to say, things that are added, such as Joel describing how he got his scar.
Yeah.
Because he, tried to kill himself 2 days after Sarah died, makes sense for his character, and it gives so much more context to, for him, because of course he would have tried to do that. And he flinches, so he misses. Yeah. And doesn't try again, and he's like, it's such a sweet moment, especially with the fact that Ellie doesn't like she thinks she understands what he's trying to get at, but misunderstands him by, thinking that time heals all wounds.
Ugh.
And he's like, no, it's like you're the one that healed it, my relationship with you, and like being able to have a father-daughter relationship again
In so many words.
In so many words. Like that's what healed him. And
it wasn't time that did it.
It's a very sweet scene, and I think that Ellie really sees there, like, actually how much she means to him now. Yeah. I think she senses the weight of that, and I do think she reciprocates it, obviously, but I kind of got a sense that, like, with Bella Ramsey's performance, that she's a little, like, she just, like, wasn't expecting it to be so strong. Like, not,
I personally don't, I didn't take it that way. I took it more in the sense that she knows that they're at the end of the road. And that she maybe doesn't feel like she is worthy of it because she feels so broken.
Yeah.
Right? That like, how people are when somebody loves them. I mean, we've all, not all of us, but I mean, I definitely have. You date that person who doesn't feel like they deserve you. And so they, they're never accepting of your love because they don't think that they're deserving of that love. And I took that moment more, and you could be right. I just took it more as like, we're at the end of our journey. We're probably going to have to go our separate ways. I think she knows to some degree that what they're doing there might be the end of her. And so she takes it as like, I'm not worth it. And this is the end. Like, this is the end of our journey. You're probably going to leave me, or maybe not, or like maybe I'm going to die. So I think it's a combination of those things, but it could totally be what you're saying. I don't know. That's just my interpretation of it. Yeah.
I like your interpretation too.
Yeah. So now in the game, we get this big water sequence. Right. They go fight the bloaters and the infecteds and clickers and some stalkers and whatever. And then Ellie and Joel jump in the water, and Joel goes after Ellie, and then Ellie saves Joel, and then Joel saves Ellie, and then they come to shore, and Ellie has drowned. Yeah. And Ellie is laying there dead, and Joel is trying to resuscitate her, and this is when the Fireflies show up and tell him to stop, and he's like fucking refusing to stop.
Yes.
Right? He's like, we're going to shoot you. And he's like, shoot me. I don't care. I'm resuscitating her. Right? And they knock him out while he's in the middle of resuscitating. So when he wakes up, the last thing he saw was Ellie's death. And so when he wakes up, and I do think that this is kind of a missing element to a degree. That being said, a flashbang grenade does go off. Or a smoke grenade. I don't know the fucking difference. I do kind of know the difference, but I think they both emit smoke. Doesn't matter. That really doesn't matter. I don't give a shit. Something happens where he sees like a grenade on the ground. So he could potentially think that Ellie has been killed, right? Like He gets knocked out, he wakes up. So they kind of have the similar wake up of like something's happened to Ellie. It's just that 100% that she thinks she's dead because he saw her technically dead in that moment. So I do kind of think this is a little bit of a miss here on that, where when he wakes up, she's dead in his eyes. And then when he finds out she's alive, there's this relief to then be told she's dead. Mm-hmm. Like she's dying. She's about to die. Yeah. Like she's dead. Oh no, she's alive, but we're killing her. Mm-hmm. And that's basically played the same here, right? They just come in, they throw their little freaking canister, and then they knock him out, and he wakes up, and he's like, oh my god, is she hurt? So I guess it's technically the same thing to a degree. It's just that he saw her straight up dead.
Right.
I
That's
think
that
the only
it's
real
the
difference.
Same feeling is conveyed because he doesn't really know what happened to her in this version, so it's like she could be dead. Yeah. It's Schrodinger's cat, so, but, I mean, yeah. I think the same feeling is conveyed. Yeah. For him, like that roller coaster of like, oh, was something happened to her? Oh no, she's okay. Sure. Oh no, she's gonna die.
Sure. This episode, I mean, I love it, and as I said, I mean, everything's basically beat for beat. There's little additions, and then the whole opening is an addition technically, kind of. I mean, we get it alluded to, right? With Marlene's tapes that we listened to, and some of the mention of her in the comic book. We basically everything plays out pretty much the same. We just get to see it here, which is really cool. But like this episode is
it's
moves. So fast.
The pacing is quick. It's really quick.
Why this is the shortest episode of the entire show is kind of baffling to me. But like, what's missing besides some action sequences that really needs to be here?
Not really, nothing. And I think that actually, I mean, I would love to have had a longer episode just to spend more time with everything. But at the same time, I feel like the pacing is so good that it is supposed to be like, it's just carrying you from beat to beat to beat. And that's kind of how the last part of the game feels too. Like whenever you're in the hospital and like going through everything, it's just like one moment to the next really quickly with all this like really intense stuff happening. And I think that this episode does a good job at conveying like the intensity and the like, what's the word I'm thinking of? Not motivation, but it just carries it. I think we were carried along with Joel for like the whole episode in a really nice way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, there's definitely no pacing issues here outside of it might be too fast.
Urgency,
right?
That's the word.
There is a very strong sense of urgency, even though the episode does play out slower. It's just, it's different, right? Like if you're somebody, whoever's watching this, if you're somebody who's never played the game and you don't know what's going to happen, what did this episode feel like to you? Did it feel rushed or not? Because we don't have a way of detaching ourselves from what we already know. So I looked over at Kayleigh when we were in the midst of this, and at the beginning I was like, let's not spend too much time on Anna because this episode's already short, and I don't want to rush through this. How the hell are they going to get all this done in 35 minutes? At that point, because the Anna stuff was like 8 to 10 minutes, and this is like a 45-minute episode, and I was like, how are we getting this done in 35 minutes? Right? And I was like, well, they're probably just going to like get there. Right? Yeah. And so like we're getting to like that place where we get to where like Joel just wakes up and they're like, she's already been taken from him. Like, oh no. Like it's too late. I was like, holy shit, we're already here?
Yeah.
Like, whoa, we really just expedited the hell out of this. But then I think about the game, it's just like, it's just all action. It's just all like fighting, fighting the infected, fighting the water currents, all that stuff. So I don't know. Is it necessary? No. Would I have liked to seen it just because I like action and it would have been cool and added to the, the scope and the thrilling nature and all that stuff? Sure. But man, it's hard to complain when you get such a great show. Now, pretty much from the moment Joel wakes up, and even before this, but especially when Joel wakes up. I mean, if you've played the game, from that point on till literally the credits roll, outside of just cutting some action out of Joel going through the hospital, pretty much every single line is exactly the same. I mean, It is so mildly different. Like it's like nothing. It's hard to even remember the differences. I remember them, but it's like Joel gets taken away by one guy in the game, and in this he gets taken away by two guys.
Yeah.
Right? It's like basic little tiny things, but the dialogue is almost word for word.
Yes.
Every single thing. The Marlene
stuff?
versus Joel thing, exactly the same. Joel rampaging through the hospital, getting to the doctor, shooting him without freaking thought, and getting her the nurses, all that stuff is the same. The conversation between Marlene and Joel in the parking garage is exactly the same.
Yeah.
The ending, the car breaks down, they got 5-hour journey, which of course is like a reference to their meeting, right? Because we also get the scene plays out, and this is exactly how it is in the game as well, when they very first kind of meet and they're out in the QZ. They make that reference of like, you can't deny this view and all that stuff, and it's like, what do you think so far and all that stuff. We get that mirrored here. They do the same thing when they're looking out at the drafts and everything.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, and then as I said, the conversation and literally the very end scene
Oh my gosh.
is word for word.
It is.
Word for word, and ends exactly at the same place. Like, the credits roll in the game. It's the okay credits.
Yeah.
Right, so...
It's a super powerful ending. But yeah, like, everything is just, it's shot for shot.
Yes.
Word for word.
Yes.
After Joel wakes up.
But, I mean, I get it. Like, you know, Craig was brought onto this and wanted to do this because he loved the game so much. And he just kind of came in being like, you know, the thing that impacted him the most is the ending.
Right.
And so for him, it's like, this stuff is untouchable. I can't touch this stuff.
Yeah.
Right? I don't want to mess with any of it. I'm gonna make every line pretty much exactly the same, and I'm all here for it.
Yes, me too.
So we talked about Joel's decision. We talked about Marlene's decision. We don't really need to reiterate that anymore. I think we can both understand why Marlene's doing what she's doing and Joel's doing what he's doing. Now, you could argue this idea of like, well, maybe if... Because the way this might have worked, and I don't still think Joel would have let it happen, but the only chance that they would have had is if they brought Joel to Ellie before, and they faced them with this impossible question.
Yeah.
And Ellie had to come to Joel, and Ellie's the only one who could have talked Joel into letting her go. Right? Do I think he would have said yes to it? I don't know, because he gets to lie to Ellie, and he doesn't want to disappoint her. Yeah. As we find out in the second game, he very much cares what Ellie thinks of him. Very much cares. And so if Ellie was like being told, you have to die, at this point, because of how she feels, because of what she did to David, because of everything they went through, the fact that Sam and Henry died, that, you know, that Tess, Jesus Christ. Okay. I kept saying Anna in my head because Anna Torv plays her, and Anna is a character in this freaking show now with, you know, Ashley Johnson playing her with it, and I just kept saying Anna, and I'm like, no, it's not Anna, because I said Anna too many times earlier. But yeah, anyway, with everything Ellie went through throughout the entire series, you see this in here. She needs this to matter. She absolutely needs this. Is something we haven't talked about, but this is the important note here: is that Ellie needs this to work.
Yes.
Ellie needs this to matter because everyone died for her.
Yeah.
Right? Tess died. Sam and Henry died. Now, would have Sam and Henry died if they didn't meet? Probably.
Sure. That's not a result of them meeting or anything.
No.
Yeah.
Would Tess have died? No, probably not.
Yeah.
Probably not. So Tess is probably on her conscience. She doesn't, you know, like she tells Joel, I didn't ask for this.
Yeah.
Right? So don't blame me. And she feels that in that moment, but she don't feel that anymore. Now she's pulling on all the guilt, right? Because once it starts raining, it pours. She's just taking all the responsibility onto herself. I got her killed, and she'll blame herself for Sam's death too, right? Because she thought she could save him, and she isn't. So now she needs to prove that she is. She failed already. She got Sam killed because, you know, maybe they could have amputated his leg. I'm sure she thought of that, but she thought she was arrogant enough that I'm just going to touch my blood on his. I'm the miracle cure. And so she needs to prove she's the miracle cure.
Yeah.
So I do think that after what happened with David and everything, if they were like, you have to die and you can save the world, 100% I think she would be like, kill me.
Yeah.
And I think she would have had to talk to Joel. And I think that if she said the right combination of words and whatever, I think Joel could have let her go. Maybe. But their mistake is to just not tell Ellie. Try to just tell Joel casually, like you know, we got her from here. They just don't know Joel well enough, and they don't know what they went through.
Exactly.
And we don't know what Marlene went through, right? Because she didn't show up at the rendezvous point.
Right.
And she's like, you know, it took 5 guys to get me here, and you don't know what the hell I've been through. And I'm like, I'd love to know what you went through.
Oh, sure.
You know,
absolutely.
I'll play that game. I'd be curious to see what she went through, because that would add a lot of context as well. Like, she needs this to matter too, because she went through so much.
Yeah. I would be really interested in that as well.
And plus, it would probably add more meaning to Anna's death
Yes.
as well. Like, Anna died to bring you into this world, and now, I said I'd protect you, but I found something that, is more important. And because of both of your sacrifices, now something good can come out of all of this. So, like, I totally get all that stuff. But it's just, that's the only way it would have worked. They screwed up. They tried to take Joel's daughter again. And he turned into Sally Field, not without my daughter. And he went on a rampage. And if they knew him at all, they would know this was the only way it was going to go.
Yeah.
Doing it like that.
The only way.
Yeah. How did you feel about the montage of action as, he was storming towards Ellie?
I liked it. I liked the way that it was shot. I think that having the sound muted really showed what type of, like, mental state he was in. Like, he was just kind of in this, like, nothing. They weren't people to him or anything. No. Like, he was just on a mission.
He's focused.
And it was, very, very much just, like, straight out of the game. I definitely thought we were going to get an Easter egg in this scene, a mention or something to a character in the second game, and we didn't, but that's okay.
I have a little piece of trivia for you, though.
Because I think that it's, still cool what'll end up happening. What's the trivia?
Yeah, it's hard because maybe you don't want to mention... Well, so, okay, guys.
Well, I mean, yeah, if it's spoiler trivia, then we don't need to talk about it.
Sort of. Okay, guys, that's our thoughts on the season.
Also, no, before we end it, because we did not talk about this scene, we totally skipped over it, and I wanted to make sure we talked about it. It's the giraffe scene. We totally skipped that, and I just wanted to bring it up because it was one of...
We can definitely talk about it.
You mentioned it?
Yeah, just only in the recreation stuff. I was like, and then when we see the giraffe scene and
I see.
Stuff
okay, well then never mind.
I did mention. I'm sorry, we should have talked about it because it's beautiful.
I just wanted to make sure that we didn't forget about it, and you were like, oh my god, we didn't talk about the giraffe scene.
And we haven't talked about the end scene either, so we'll save. We'll talk about this the Easter egg thing here in a minute after we discuss the giraffe and the very end, and that's it.
We don't have to talk about it
too much. Talk about
it's just that it was really beautiful, and it's such a sweet moment, and it was one of the things that we were really looking forward to in the show, so it was great to see it.
It was an absolute must, and I would have been shocked. Would I have rather gotten the picture scene in this episode and in the Tommy episode, or the giraffe scene? The giraffe scene, for sure, because as I said, we already get the payoff.
Yes.
For the emotional journey shift of Joel in this show.
Yeah.
So the picture is just added, right? But this serenity, this remembrance of that humans aren't the only thing, right? Like humans get very wrapped up in themselves, and it's like, well, if we die out, what will be left?
Right.
Lots of shit.
Yes.
Right? Like, there's beauty in nature. We're not the only things that matter. I know we think we are because we can think on some higher level, or at least we think we do. But there's all sorts of different life out there. Not only animals, but plant life and, mycelium, freaking mushrooms. I mean, we know from this, there's plenty of mushrooms at this point in the world. But they're very complex systems that very much matter. And humans aren't all that's there. And there is this reminder of not only, like, the beauty and elegance of nature but like the importance of other life, and there's also this calm before the storm. It's a reminder of the beauty in the world after all this darkness, and it's a breath they get to take before the final plunge into what we know to be the madness of the ending. So a beautiful scene, very much needed, iconic imagery, and yeah, that's that. As far as the ending goes, the very, very ending, we get Joel, who... I love the way Pedro plays this scene, because this is something I do get in the game, but I really get it here. When Ellie stops him right before they get to Jackson, and she's like, swear to me, you can see him stop for a second, like, you know how when you are, trying to hide something, or you're guilty of something or whatever, and you're like trying to distract people and move around, you know, especially with like your parents when you're a kid.
Yeah.
And you're like trying, and then they like, you think you got away with it. You're right there, man. You're almost home. You're going to go to bed. They're not going to bring it up. And then they're like, well, by the way, and you're like, oh, fuck. Damn it. I was almost there.
Yeah.
You know, like when she says, like, swear to me, like the whole, like she stops him and starts saying, you can see the look on his face of like, fuck. Like,
yes.
I have to answer. She's not going to let this go.
Yeah.
We got to address this. And he knows it's coming. You always know you're going to get caught. It's just like, you can see it. Pedro plays it so perfectly.
Yes.
The look on his face is like, fuck, I didn't want to have to do this. I don't want to have to address this. Why can't it just be happy? Why can't we just go on? Why can't you understand what I had to do without me telling you? Why can't you just accept that I love you? Right?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, he does such a good job at just like conveying all of it, and it's so sad and heartbreaking because you're like, no, don't lie, but you have to.
Well, we know he's going to.
Yeah.
We know he's going to. But this is a great moment. I mean, we get to see Ellie confirm that she killed Riley, as we all know.
Yeah.
And then she point blank asks him, and you know, and this is up for interpretation, but I think it's pretty clear that, you know, when he has that moment to answer her, you know, he decides, of course, that he's gonna lie. Mm-hmm. That, you know, and they do add a little cute thing here, because in the game he's just like, oh, they had a bunch of kids that, you know, a bunch of people who are already immune and they don't need you, so we just left. And she doesn't ask like, well, why didn't I get to see them and all this stuff? So there's this little inclusion of like, you know, raiders came in and people got killed and all that stuff. That's a really smart inclusion, because it answers like why they had to leave, why she doesn't have her clothes.
Yes,
and
it was
you
like
know,
we were
if
attacked.
For some reason she was to like look into it and there was like a report of a bunch of dead bodies there,
right,
she'd be like, oh yeah, raiders came, right? So it's like a smart lie, and it's a smart inclusion into the show. Mm-hmm. So I just wanted to point that out. Anyway, so he's got the moment to answer. He lies, and as I said, this is open for interpretation, but my interpretation has always been Ellie knows he's lying.
Yeah, I think that's...
And she just has to accept that he's lying. The okay is like, okay, I'll accept that you're lying.
Yes.
Not like, okay, I believe you. I don't think for a second, if you watch the game, and the game's acting is just as good as the show's, and in the remake that they just did for PS5, it's even better, because you really get to see Ashley Johnson's performance there, and Troy Baker's performance through their, you know, the mocap that they do for the CG, or whatever you want to call it, the animation. It very much, to me, in both versions, they're both like, you're a fucking liar.
Yeah.
But like, I accept that you're lying to me, and I'm just gonna let it go for now.
Yeah. Yeah. No.
And
pretty
she
much.
just knows, like,
It's
in the back of her mind, like, something fucked up happened. I know you, Joel.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And so yeah, this season ends on a betrayal, right? And I wonder if Joel's actions have any consequences in the next season with Ellie and anybody else. We shall see. We shall see.
We shall see.
Anything more before we get into a couple little spoilers for next season?
No.
No?
No.
Phenomenal episode.
Absolutely.
Thank you guys for joining us through this journey, listening to us ramble about one of our very favorite things on planet Earth. I can't think of entertainment that means more to me than The Last of Us. I cannot wait for season 2. I can't wait to talk about it with you guys. I can't wait to see anything from it, and I can't wait for all the fucking controversy that's going to be stirred up once again. If you guys aren't familiar with Game 2, please don't look into it for any reason, because it will get spoiled to you.
Yeah.
And with that spoiling might come some kind, because I feel like a reason a lot of people dislike the game is because it became like reactionary and trendy, and like people were just jumping on things to fit in and to be like reject it without context, right? like, oh, I heard this thing and that pisses me off, and now everyone else is pissed off. How could they do such a thing? And then there's all this conspiratorial type of shit.
Yeah.
With like trans
It's
people and all this.
Super dumb.
Super
stuff,
dumb.
So don't look into it if you don't know
bother.
anything about it, and just wait for the show.
Sure, or play the second game. It's amazing. It's my personal favorite game of all time. I think it asks the most rich, deep, philosophical questions that you could possibly pose, and it is it is the most risky game I've ever played in my life, because it truly challenges its player, not just in gameplay, right? Like there's games like the Bethesda games, right? The Dark Bethesda, is that you the Dark Souls and the Elden Rings and all that stuff, right? Like those really challenge you as a game player. But game 2 challenges you as a human being. It challenges your beliefs, and I think it's insanely successful.
I agree.
Because of how many people reject it. Because that's exactly how it is in life, right? Like we get the same thing here, where there's always going to be this argument on whether Joel did the right thing or not. Some people completely agree and are like, I do the same thing. And then there's the other people who fight about it. They can agree on the love for this game, right? But with the next game, they take it even a step further, and they ask you to do this again in a different way. And it's like, can you see the reason why somebody did what they did? And this time, people reject it even harder, to the point where they can't even enjoy the game. The question is too hard for them to, to ponder. So, brilliant stuff. Love it. And, it is what it is on that. So, let's discuss the cool little Easter egg and our thoughts on like season 2 really quick, and then we'll be done with this. And you can join us next time for Yellow Jackets, which will be starting here in 12 days. Yeah. So we will be watching and reviewing that like we did last time. So look forward to that. And From should be starting up again, but I don't even think we finished that show on the channel.
We did finish the show, but we for some reason stopped reviewing it. So yeah.
We did, but we're not going to this time. We will stick with it because I really like these week-to-week shows and talking with them on the channel. I love doing that. We didn't do Servant.
No,
we've been so inconsistent with Servant. Sometimes we do the season, sometimes we don't. We're so lame on that. Yeah. So, all right. So, spoilers to a degree. I'm not going to get crazy into Game 2. Obviously, we're not going to talk the whole thing. So, if you don't know anything about Game 2, time to shut it off. So, anyway, the cool little Easter egg here is that one of the nurses that's in the room with the doctor, obviously, if you know, there's a character named Abby, and this girl in the room who's the nurse, who's one of the nurses behind the mask, is the actress who played Abby in the game.
Oh, cool. That's really cool.
So technically we do get Abby in this scene. Yeah. And this is the thing. And we didn't want to mention Abby because in Game 2, you aren't supposed to know Abby's connection to anything.
Yeah.
Right? So if we mention Abby in this scene, that's gonna be...
Right.
Like, people, when they see season 2, they're like, Abby, wait a minute. I heard her name. Now I know she's connected to that thing.
So I think that as much as I wanted to see her because we got Dina earlier in the season, I feel like it is smart that we don't see Abby, because I think that the entire point of the second game revolves around the fact that you don't know a character who becomes so important, who's affected by Joel and Ellie's actions, right? Like, there's consequences, mostly Joel's. And
Joel's in the beginning, yes. Ellie's later.
And then Ellie's later.
Yeah.
And that's where, you know, like, the difficulty comes for people, because, like, it's hard for them to connect with somebody that they haven't, or a character that they haven't been introduced to, and they have no, like, backstory or anything on, and you're just, like, you know, thrown into it. But I think that the show, because I guess, like, with predictions for the second season, I do think that it's going to be pretty faithful. Like, okay, if the show starts where the second game begins. Like, if it's the second game, I think it is going to be extremely faithful to the second game. I don't think that there's going to be much change, just like this season. I think there will be additions. Maybe the action will be cut out again, or maybe we'll continue to keep, we'll get that instead. The only thing that I think would be different with the second season is if we spend time in Jackson in between the first and second game, which I would be super excited for, to see new stories and Ellie's life there, and just like the relationship between Joel and Ellie in Jackson at that time, and all of that would be really cool. But
I'm up in the air on that one. Part of me thinks that season 2 will be like mostly new material, alluding to the events of game 2 and leading up to. And maybe like the last episode or 2 of the season is stuff from part 2.
It would be crazy to end.
I could just see. I know. I could see it just outright being game 2 from the beginning. I don't know. We'll see. What would I prefer? I'd prefer we don't get into I prefer we don't get into game 2 until season 3, basically.
Yeah.
Right? I'd love to see more time.
Yes.
And a new story. Like almost a completely new story to us that just adds on to the story in part 2 and part 1 as well. Right? So give me that like middle chapter that's missing as like a DLC, an add-on content.
Yeah,
I'm
totally.
all about it. Now, what would they be able to do because of the strain on Ellie and Joel's relationship? I don't know, because we don't really know when Ellie and Joel's relationship becomes estranged, right? Like he teaches her guitar and all of that, and she's playing pretty well, and it's been like 5 years. So I have to believe that she bought into that lie for a couple years. And between there and that, you've got a lot of shit you can explore.
Yeah.
And you have, the introduction of Dina, which we did get in this season. I don't care what anyone says. It's fucking Dina. Outright. 100,000% that's Dina. So we can bring in Dina. We can have Tommy and them, and they're, fighting to protect Jackson from outside invaders. And you can do a whole mess of shit before you get to game 2. So season 2 can be straight up completely new with just a tease of Abby or whatever at the end of the episode.
Yeah.
Of the last episode of season 2. I don't know. I have a feeling, if I had to guess, I'm gonna think that we're basically just gonna cover game 2. I don't see them just doing like almost all new material. I just don't see it happening. I'd love it. I just don't see it happening. And I'll be totally fine if that's what they do. But we do have a big time jump here to address. And Bella Ramsey, while she is 19, and when they start filming this, she'll probably be like 20. And if she takes her chest binder off,
I think she'll
and she
look
makeups herself up a little bit, then I mean, she's 20. She's 19 now. She'll be 20 by the time they film. And Ellie in the game is like 19. So she'll be the right age, right? We didn't see Abby, fine. So we don't have to worry about that. Abby can be 5 years older because we never saw her. And Dina is just going to have to be played by a different actress. I doubt that's the actual actress that's playing Dina. We'll just see a flashback when she's like, I've loved you since the first time I saw you. That kind of thing. Or I've been enamored with you. Whatever the fuck. But we will get a reference to that Dina scene for sure. 100% we'll see a flashback in this show referencing that moment.
Yeah.
Confirming that it was her. And that's that. What a wonderful season.
Yes.
And what more can we say?
I know.
Besides, thank you for this journey with us. It's been wonderful. I wish more people watched, of course. I think we have the best videos on The Last of Us online because I watched most of them, and we discuss them the most in depth of anybody. I watched like Chris Stuckman's stuff, and it's good. It's fine. It's good, but it's like 5 minutes long. And it's like, how do you cover these episodes in 5 minutes?
Yeah.
You don't. You can just kind of give your basic notes. Like, oh yeah, I like this and this, and that was cool. All right. Thanks. But we discuss every single little detail. So I do wish that these videos would get a little bit more attention because I think they deserve them, especially from super fans like us.
Sure.
But,
yeah.
Here I am crying about this shit. So that's that. All right, guys. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And we'll see you soon. We've got a Monster Monday dropping here in about 40 minutes. And hopefully for those of you who watch Yellow Jackets, that'll be the next time to catch us for a show. So we'll see you then. And until then, endure.
Endure and survive.
And survive.
And when you're lost in the darkness,
look for the light.
Bye.